You can be seated. The objection is overruled. Ms. Cappleman, you may continue with your argument.
When the bump happens, you get to observe this defendant and her son in action working the problem. Neither of them would ever just lay down and let themselves get victimized by anyone. The bump is an actual recorded example of how these two act when they're threatened by an extortionist, in this case a blackmailer, and it's the complete opposite of how they say they've been acting before in the previous extortion. Several other things to note about this. Let's just compare like the two extortions, the prior one and the one with the bump. So when the bump happens, they resist, right? They don't open their safe up. It's only $5,000 compared to thousands and thousands of dollars they've been paying. $5,000, they don't pay. They resist. They take action. There are in-person meetings between Charlie Adelson and his mother, Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanua, and eventually with Dad too, about the bump and what to do about it. The defendant eventually downloads a recording app and records a call to the would-be blackmailer. So she records this call, an action that wasn't taken in the 2 years that they were being extorted previously. Charlie tells Ryan Fitzpatrick about the bump, although he never mentioned being extorted over the previous 2 years to Ryan Fitzpatrick. They investigate the bump. This defendant questions every aspect of the undercover. His look, his words, his behavior. You know, it's done like that, it's not done like that. Charlie enlists Catherine Magbanua to find out who it is and to handle it, right? Charlie says he's not going to take it lying down. He threatens Nazi shit if they mess with his family. Katie, I don't care what I spend. You'd better kill him because he's going to be a big problem. If he can't do it, I'll have someone else do it. Now these guys want an extra $5,000. You're going to kill him when you've been paying, I don't know how many, $100 and some odd thousand over the past 2 years. You weren't killing anybody then. They don't pay the money. If Mrs. Adelson has been blindly writing these checks every 2 weeks for 2 years, and her son has been paying additional monies each month on the layaway plan to the extortionist, and they've done nothing to investigate it, nothing to report it, nothing to stop it, but now they're going to launch a full-scale investigation over $5,000 more dollars? They don't call out Catherine Magbanua. According to Charlie and this defendant, they've been paying Magbanua now for 2 years, or at least funneling money through her. And here Charlie is talking to the person that's been collecting that money over all those months. But at no point does he acknowledge in that Dolce Vita recording or even allude to this long history of payments he's been making to her. This long history of extortion that's been ongoing through her. While they're still in the restaurant, Charlie gives Magbanua instructions. Say my friends have no idea what you're talking about, and frankly, I don't know what you're talking about, but the name sounds familiar of who's incarcerated, so I'm going to give you something as charity to help the less fortunate, but do not contact these people again or they're going to the police. The whole time you're talking, just say, I don't know what's going on, and only use the words help and charity. Charlie proceeds to give Magbanua a whole lecture on blackmail, which is pretty ironic in light of the fact that his defense is she was blackmailing me or extorting him. And these are just a selection of the incriminating quotes from the Dolce Vita recording that you all heard. After the meeting with Magbanua at Dolce Vita, Charlie calls the defendant in call F and tells her he had coffee with a friend and gave her some good relationship advice. Well, at this time, Catherine Magbanua is living with Sigfredo Garcia. Relationship advice. This means he talked to Katie and she's going to talk to Garcia and they're going to handle it and deal with the problem. Donna seems to understand this from the use of the term relationship advice. In Call G, she's less sure than Charlie that this is the police. That's his theory. She's worried it might not be accurate. She says she has a different theory. He assures her repeatedly it's being handled, there's nothing to worry about, don't freak out. Magbanua does not want to make that phone call though, and neither does Garcia. And you hear him pretty emphatic on that wire that he's not making that phone call. But everybody starts lying to each other about having called it because everybody wants to reassure the co-conspirator up the chain that it's all good, I'm handling it, it's not going to come back on us. Charlie expresses concern that if they pay the money, they'll create a monster that will demand more and more and more money. And the defendant replies to that exactly. So these calls go up and down the train cars, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Donna to Charlie to Katie to Garcia and back, over and over again. In Call R, Charlie is telling Magbanua that he has a very nice gift for Garcia's birthday. So if we think about his defense, the defense that this guy is extorting him after he, on his own, went and killed the ex-brother-in-law, he's going to buy a birthday gift for the guy? The man that he knows killed Dan Markel? And Donna says this is the truth. The truth is out. Once Charlie and the defendant finally decide for sure that the bump is an undercover as opposed to a real gang member, bad guy, you have never seen two people so happy to be under investigation for first-degree murder in your whole entire life. They convince themselves that they're untouchable. It's just the FBI fishing. They don't have anything on us. If they had anything on us, we'd already be at the airport. They're thrilled about it. Even on the call that the defendant staged and recorded to the undercover where she's proclaiming her innocence, it's pretty interesting the words that she chooses. For example, she says, "I'm out of the loop." How odd is that statement? It implies she knows there's a loop and she's not in it. The evidence has shown that the co-conspirators in this case were all on a need-to-know basis for their own protection. That's why Catherine Magbanua wasn't shown the murder instructions. That's why no Adelson had any contact with the hitmen. And that's why the defendant didn't attend the murder meetings with Charlie Adelson and his mother. They were insulating each other. She was out of the loop on the stuff that the undercover was talking about. You know, my brother in Broward, Luis Rivera, she didn't know anything about Luis Rivera. She was out of the loop on that. But she was in the loop on Catherine Magbanua. She knew an ex-girlfriend met Catherine Magbanua. She knew that Catherine Magbanua needed to give relationship advice to deal with the problem with her baby daddy. She was in the loop on paying for this murder, and she was in the loop with Charlie to get a win for the Adelson family. In May of 2016, after the bump, the defendant stops writing checks. The bad guy comes up to you and wants more money, so what do? You stop writing the checks you've been writing for 2 years under some threat? She's still not going to the police, but apparently she's not scared anymore. She's going to stand up to him and stop writing the checks, okay? Why? Isn't it because she's gotten spooked, because she's figured out this is law enforcement, and they're getting close? In May and June of 2016, Garcia and Rivera are arrested. The news of this makes it all the way to Rob Adelson's operating room. When Rob next speaks to his mother, he says, "Hey, they got the guys. They arrested the guy that shot Danny." Getting no response, he brings up the matter again, like, "Did you hear they got the guys that killed Danny?" And she responds, "I've got to go," and she hangs up. That is the last time that Rob Adelson has talked to his mother. because he knew, and she knew he knew. A couple other problems for the defense that I want to point out as far as this whole Charlie story goes. These are kind of mind benders, so bear with me. In 2016, after the arrests of Garcia and Rivera, but before the arrest of Magbanua, there's a text indicating, this is Charlie to Donna. Charlie says, basically that his lawyer was meeting with Garcia's lawyer. If Garcia acted alone and then extorted Charlie, why is Charlie's lawyer meeting with Garcia's lawyer? This is your extortionist. In fact, regardless of whatever the defense is, why are the two of them meeting? Unless they have common interests. And while Charlie's lawyer is at this meeting, he runs into Magbanua. Magbanua hasn't been arrested yet. She's up there seeing Garcia's lawyer. Well, why is she doing that? According to Charlie's story that this defendant adopted, Magbanua is not in on it. She's a victim too of Garcia, her baby daddy, who's a bad dude. Why is she up at his lawyer's office? And when they learn that Magbanua was up there, Charlie says, oh, my lawyer ran into Magbanua while he was up there. He said she's nice and pretty, and Donna says, just like all your girlfriends. Well, why isn't she saying, what do you mean? Why is she up there? I thought she was a victim of Garcia, just like us. All right, so here's another text. This one's from August of 16. In this one, Charlie and the defendant are discussing a newspaper article in the Tallahassee Democrat, which talks about a drug dealer that the killers had contact with when they were here in Tallahassee from Miami. And somehow Charlie deduces this drug dealer is going to be the state's star witness, and they're basically spitballing alternative defenses. This is August of 2016. They've known, supposedly, who the killer was. The truth came out that the killer was Garcia and that they knew about it since the time of the killing. But here they are saying, well, maybe a drug dealer killed Danny and a drug deal gone bad. This is because the extortion thing hadn't been invented yet. The extortion thing didn't get invented until right before Charlie's trial in 2023, when he's trying to think of what he's going to say from that witness stand to explain all the evidence against him. Rivera gives a proffer. That's on September 30th of 2016. Magbanua gets arrested October 1st, 2016. You would think that if Charlie's story was the truth, he would be sleeping well for the first time in a long time, knowing that these folks that were taking his money and taking his mother's checks were off the streets and behind bars. But to the contrary, you've heard evidence that he started freaking out around that time, and so did the defendant, right? His behavior became erratic. He became angry, paranoid, stressed. Per June, he got a second phone. He started sleeping with a bag of clothes by the bed. He started communicating with her via WhatsApp. In April of 2022, Charlie gets arrested. In that Dolce Vita restaurant recording, he repeatedly refers to the bump as a blackmail attempt. He uses the word blackmail on the Dolce Vita recording. But in trial, he switches that up to extortion, claiming that he and his mom have been extorted by the hitman. That was going on since 2014. But interestingly, in October 16th of 2023, so just 7 days before Charlie's trial started, this defendant, Donna Adelson, Googled the difference between blackmail and extortion. And the difference is that blackmail is the threat to expose some dirt on somebody. I know something about you, and if you don't pay up, I'm going to expose the dirt. Whereas extortion is the threat to harm somebody. You don't pay up, I'm going to harm you. Obviously, when they developed this defense in preparation for Charlie's trial, they realized the term blackmail was not a good word for them because it indicates they were somehow involved. You got to have some dirt. Okay? It needs to be extortion, threat of harm. We're totally innocent. They did this on their own. They came to us. They extorted us. the defendant doubles down on this. So yeah, she said the truth is out, the truth is out. What does that really mean? Well, she doubles down on it when she writes that script for the witness, Drina Bernhardt, who she solicited to come in here and perjure herself to you all. What does she write in the script? Extort, underlined. This script is Charlie's story. She's again adopting it by writing it out for her witness that she's trying to recruit to come in and deliver it to y'all, which of course backfires. And according to the defense investigator who interviewed Bird, her first story involved the word extort. It's pretty unusual. Regardless of what you think of Drina and Bird, it's clear what the defendant was trying to do with them. I mean, when Drina Bernhardt had that script, and it read exactly like Charlie's whole story, with the exception of the part where he told his mom, it was in the defendant's handwriting. That was very compelling evidence that this defendant was trying to buy herself some witnesses. I do want to talk about one more piece that has to be dealt with regarding this whole story of the extortion. And that's that Wendy wasn't in on it. Okay, there's a text November 1st of 2023. So this is after the truth comes out. This defendant texts Wendy Adelson, her daughter, and acknowledges that Wendy doesn't know anything about all this extortion stuff. And like, sorry, we had to keep it from you for so long kind of thing. If Charlie's defense was the truth, and Charlie and this defendant knew there was a threat to Wendy and her kids from the people that killed Dan, it's a little shocking that they failed to mention it to her. Instead, they let her and the boys move to Miami, where the bad guys were, and, you know, walk up and down the street without any extra protection or even knowing that the killers knew who they were and had threatened their lives and lived there in Miami. The defendant also acknowledges in this November 1st text, at the bottom there, next one, previous one maybe. Okay, on that text, which is in evidence, it says, get the quote, "You know I'm next." This is the defendant to Wendy Adelson. "You know I'm next, but that won't happen. I'll take care of that." An important insight into her state of mind when you're considering this evidence about her flight to Vietnam. All right, 11/6/23, Charlie's jury is deliberating. The defendant gets angry about Wendy sending prayer hands. I guess, you know, your brother's on trial for his life and you're sending prayer hands, an emoji. She says, protected his sister for years. Protected her? Protected her from what? Would he need to protect her from the knowledge that they were being extorted? Or does it make more sense that the protection that's referred to is the murder, and the fact that this defendant is a little angry that Wendy doesn't seem to appreciate what she views as a huge sacrifice that her brother has made for her and her benefit. Wendy's not charged. This was all for her. 11/6/2023, Charlie is convicted. Nothing about the extortion defense adds up for Charlie, and it doesn't add up for Donna Adelson either. It's true that she did not pull the trigger. She's guilty of first degree murder as a principal, which we talked about at jury selection, about how a party who assists in the murder can be charged and convicted the same as the person that pulled the trigger, even if they're not physically present when the trigger is pulled, which is not disputed that she was not. And you all agreed to follow that law, even if you ended up not liking it, right? I don't know if anyone admitted to not liking it, but you don't really know if you're going to like it or not until you have to make a decision. If you don't like it, you still must apply it. I know that I can trust you to do that. We talked in jury selection about the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence. And it's true that this is largely a circumstantial case. You might recall my powdered donuts example. Had direct evidence that it was the kid not covered in powdered donuts, but we agreed that being covered in the powdered donuts was pretty good evidence that that's the child that ate the donuts. This case is not entirely circumstantial. I mean, she's covered in powdered donuts, don't get me wrong. But there is direct evidence as well, and I want to go over those. To Rob, when told that he'd already spoken to the police, she says, "Will, you don't know anything anyway." That's direct evidence. You can consider that as direct evidence. To Charlie, after being handed an article about Dan Markel's murder, it involves both of us. It involves the two of us. Number 3, 44 checks to the killer, signed by Donna Adelson. Catherine McBanoa admits she was in a plot to kill Dan Markel. And she got 44 checks, and they were all signed by this woman. Next, that license plate number. She had the car, make, model, and license plate in her 2014 planner. Her statements to Bird, she admitted she did what she was accused of. The script written by this defendant in this defendant's handwriting for Drina Bernhardt to come in here and deliver to y'all about stuff that wasn't true. She also speaks in code. Innocent people do not speak in code, ladies and gentlemen. And consider the things she didn't do. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She didn't want to talk in the apartment. She did not want to send a picture of the bump flyer to Charlie. She didn't say the name of Dan Markel. Anywhere on that wire, she did not say his name. Dan, Danny, Gibbers, that asshole, nothing. Why not? And she didn't go to the police. Nice, normal, Jewish grandmother approached on the street about a murder and an extortion attempt. She didn't go to the police? Why not? After Charlie's found guilty, the defendant sends this text to Wendy Adelson. Your brother protected you for years. Now you are not guilty. Your lawyer took very good care of you. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. Does not sound at that moment as if she's totally committed to attending the bar mitzvah. You heard that open line call where she's making plans to either flee or kill herself. She is distraught over the verdict. And she's distraught over the knowledge that she's next. The defense has tried to sell you that her emergency fast-track visa and one-way ticket to a non-extradition country was a vacation. On November 7th of 2023, this defendant Googled a list of U.S. extradition treaties. She was looking for a non-extradition country, and she booked a ticket to one with a stop in another non-extradition country. She applies for a fast-track emergency visa for Vietnam. I wanted it the fastest I can get it. She indicates a 30-day visa is not sufficient. She requests for the longest visa, which is 90 days, which is past the bar mitzvah date. She tries to get Wendy to help with business assistance. And when Wendy doesn't respond, she ends up asking her friend, Annie Cunningham, who y'all met in court. She says, I can't say exactly why, but we need you guys to come here, both of you. Wendy's not responding to us, and we have an issue that we cannot discuss over the phone. Why can't you discuss it over the phone? You're just going on vacation. Annie responds, basically, just say the word. When they leave for the airport, Harvey leaves this note dated 11/12/23 for Wendy regarding what is needed to sell some property, a gun. Donna makes notes in her planner to have Wendy have the lawyer tell Charlie where they are on the lawyer's private line, so the call will not be recorded. Why not? Y'all are going on vacation. You're coming back. You're not fleeing. There's also a note in her planner to cancel disability insurance. That doesn't seem like something one does when they're going on vacation. There's a note, tell Wendy due October expenses, child support through mid-November 2025. They're presumably for Charlie's son planning to pay child support 2 years in advance. So this is made in 23. All right, November 13th, 2023, the defendant is arrested trying to board a one-way flight to a non-extradition country. I mean, y'all decide if it's a vacation. This is a conspiracy. I mean, this took a lot of thought and effort. It's not a typical murder case. The defendant and her son set this up in a way that was designed to protect them. The main benefit of the structure of this conspiracy is that each party can insulate or distance themselves from each other. The primary risk of a conspiracy is that you're doing it with other people, right? You can get caught. Somebody can squeal. Somebody could give you up. And that's why the conspiracy is not shaped like this. Rather, they're not all huddled up together. They're going to be more like train cars. This is the way we see the communication flow throughout the course of the conspiracy. The best way to insulate yourself from your co-conspirators is to organize the conspiracy like a train car, with each car only communicating with the one in front and the one behind. That way, if someone gets caught or cooperates with law enforcement, they won't have enough information on you to give you up. And it's also very important to position yourself within the conspiracy such that those that have the most information on you are those most loyal to you. And that is exactly what Donna Adelson did. To be guilty of conspiracy, it's not necessary for the defendant to say any particular word or do any particular act. But in this case, she did do that. We have all those words and acts that we went over that directly tie her. They are direct evidence tying her to this conspiracy, plus all the powdered sugar dust. Don't let the way she thought she was going to get away with this be the way she gets away with it. Render a verdict that does justice. Find her guilty. Thank you.
Members of the jury, at this time we are going to take our lunch break. The bailiff will take you into the jury room. Lunch will be provided for you. Once again, I'm going to remind you, do not discuss this case with each other until we have come to its conclusion. You may discuss any other matters, but do not discuss the case. Do not seek out any outside information. The bailiff will take you to the jury room. The lunch will be delivered shortly. Everyone can be seated. If the defense can go ahead and move forward with setting up the room in the manner in which you'll need to do. We will come back at 1:45. The defense will give its closing. The state will give any rebuttal that it has. 7 minutes and 6 seconds. Ms. Cappleman. You may request additional time if needed. Mr. Zellman.
With respect to us setting up, we're going to need the exhibits. The exhibits are obviously not going to stay in here during a lunch break. So once the clerk gets back from her lunch break, and we'll obviously come back a little bit early, but
Please return then by 1:20 so that way you can get set up.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, do you want the demonstratives that were admitted not admitted, but that were shown as demonstratives to be admitted as court exhibits? Or-
Yes. If anything does need to be reviewed, anything that was presented to the jury, even as a demonstrative, I'm sure will be of use to the appellate court.
Yes, sir.
All demonstratives for the state or the defense that were used during the trial, these will be court exhibits.
Yes, sir.
We're in recess. Defense is to return at 1:20 to set up. For everyone else, please return by 1:30.